Brookland News Live begins right now. Here's Jackson Mitchell.
And a good day, good to be with you. I'm Jackson Mitchell. Sorry about that little pause there. We were already facing difficulties as we're joining you for yet another edition of Brookland News Live. It is a Wednesday at 2:25 p.m. We are monitoring a number of different stories. Let's take you out to all of them. We'll go first over, never mind. We've just concluded a press conference by Fed Chair Jerome Powell, where he says rates will remain the same. He took questions from press on a number of different issues there. We were monitoring that as it occurred. Again, interest rates remaining the same for the fifth time, though he did note that two on the board did dissent with the majority opinion here to keep rates at the same. We're also monitoring this even over in Washington, the National Traffic Safety Board holding a hearing on that plane crash in D.C. If you remember, it was really soon after President Donald Trump took office. So we are monitoring that feed. President Donald Trump also a little later today expected to speak on health. We are waiting for that to also come. A number of different stories we are following at this hour. We are going to continue to follow all of these stories. We're also following the tsunami warnings that occurred last night. Nothing major in Hawaii. The major fears of a tsunami have kind of been toned down, to say the least, but we're still watching for any type of kind of oceanic movements there. So we'll start you out first with this National Traffic Safety Board hearing on that plane crash. It was a Black Hawk helicopter and a plane. It was a mid-air collision. They crashed into the Potomac River. I believe we had been on the air at that time. If we weren't, we are following it very closely, but we are now going to go over to that hearing. Let's listen in.
Was the main one. And then when police and MedStar are operating in the zones, just keeping military rotary wing aircraft out of the zones. That was a couple of the concerns that they brought up, because we know that when a police helicopter is in pursuit, both people inside the aircraft are probably looking inside or looking down in the street, and they're not looking outside the aircraft. So we avoided the zones that were active, and anytime Falcon, which is the DC Metro, was active in a zone, we would avoid those zones. But I was not aware of any requested changes.
Mr. Allen, going back to the proposal to make changes to Route 4, do you recall when that proposal was made?
We had attempted it when I was part of the helicopter working group in the 2021-2022 timeframe.
Okay, thank you. And was there a documented proposal that you recall?
Not that I recall.
Okay. Mr. Dressler, we've talked about concerns about certain operators in the DCA airspace. From your perspective, are there any operators that you feel cause concern for your operations?
Unfortunately, yes. And I don't take any pleasure. I'm a former Army aviator, and I'm a retired Air Force officer. And I don't like to say that that the Air Force First Heli is a concern, and I really don't like saying that 12th Aviation is a concern. But it was a widespread concern, and it was noted to the battalion commander previous to the current one in about 2022 or 2021 by a member of our group, that there was a significant issue with both training and attitude toward operations within the DC airspace.
And could you expand, so how did that affect your operation?
Well, when you combine that with our 2017 near miss, my company and the other operators in the area either curtail operations or there's not much we can do when we have a medevac patient and we're trying to get a critically ill patient where we need them to go. But our best answer is to maintain extra vigilance. It's an extreme challenge, especially when those aircraft are not usually transmitting on ADS-B, and I can't see them on my traffic system, and all kinds of challenge inherent there. I think our best answer is extreme vigilance. I know in our company policy we fly as high as possible, so we'll take the maximum of any of the zone or route altitudes. And the air traffic controllers, we have a fantastic relationship with them and have always had that, where we can ask for something different. So if I need to ask for a deviation, and the same with all of our members, we're not bound by that, and they'll grant those requests whenever possible. The best answer I have for you is see and avoid, which is the basic tenet of every aviator on the planet.
Thank you. I'm going to jump to a different question because that's twice now that I've heard see and avoid being used. So, Dr. Kastner, if you could talk about see and avoid, what are some of the benefits of it from a pilot's and an air traffic control perspective, but also what are some of the limitations of see and avoid?
Well, see and avoid is one of our most basic, familiar cognitive perceptual faculties. Is when we use our eyes, ears, and attentive minds to look out for hazards, anything that might get in our way. The advantages is we have a lifetime of experience of using it, so we don't need the user's manual. And then comes the problems associated with it, in that our ability to pay attention is very narrow. Even our focused vision, if you hold your thumb out at arm's length, that's about how much you can see in focus at any one time. You could hold a book or a page behind it, and if you stare right at your thumbnail, you find that you can't read the words even beside them. So that's quite limited right there. So we get good at knowing where to point it, and we also benefit greatly from any kind of clues, hints, tips, where to point our eyes in a complex situation. And the more we know, the more information we get, the better we get at it.
Also for you, Dr. Kastner, one of the questions that Mr. Soper asked of the panel members were some of the complexities of operating within the DCA airspace, and some of the things that were mentioned was a mix of traffic, the nearby airspace of other airports, prohibited areas. It's a small airspace. So we've got this high-density airport, mixed traffic with different performance capabilities. We've got nighttime conditions, we've got intersecting runways, we've got cultural lighting. So with all of those things, again, if you can speak sort of from the performance and how we operate.
Well, they challenge it, for sure. It makes it harder. But again, the more I know about them in advance and the more information support I get while I'm exercising that vigilance, the better it's going to be, certainly.
What about in terms of...
Alrighty, we will keep following that event there. Earlier, just moments ago, Democratic leaders in the Senate, you see Chuck Schumer there, and a few other Democratic leaders in the background, speaking on an update on the Jeffrey Epstein story that is continuing to have mounting pressure on the Trump administration. We want to bring you the news that's been happening throughout the day, so we'll go here. We will continue monitoring that hearing, though, on NTSB, that crash over the D.C. Potomac River. Let's listen in.
Known as the Rule of Five, to compel the Department of Justice to release the full and complete Epstein files. Under federal law, when any 5 senators on the Homeland Security Committee call on the executive branch must comply. Our request covers all documents, files, evidence, and other materials in possession of the DOJ, the FBI, related to the case of United States versus Jeffrey Epstein. While protecting the victims' identities can and must be of top importance, the public has a right to know who enabled, knew of, or participated in one of the most heinous sex trafficking operations in history. Let me remind everyone of what's happened in recent months. Donald Trump campaigned on releasing the Epstein files. He broke that promise. In February, FBI Director Kash Patel promised during sworn testimony in his confirmation hearing he would, quote, make sure the American public knows the full weight of what happened. Well, that has yet to happen. A.G. Bondi said in February that his supposed, quote, client list, she said, was sitting on her desk right now to review. And she said that's been a directive by President Trump. 5 months later, we have zero answers, only more questions. What have we gotten since? Stonewall, evasion, lies. Trump was asked earlier this month if he had ever been informed whether or not he was mentioned in the Epstein files, and now we know he lied. He said no, but in fact he was told by the Attorney General in May that he was mentioned. And when the House had an opportunity to take votes on the Epstein files, Speaker Johnson skedaddled out of town, launching the Epstein recess. This is not complicated. After promising full transparency for years, every single time Trump, his administration, Republican leaders have had a chance to be transparent about the Epstein files, they've chosen to hide. The evasions, the delays, the excuses, they are not just odd, they're alarming. It begs the question, if there's nothing to hide, why all the evasiveness? Trump should stop hiding from the truth. He should stop hiding from the American people. So today, Senate Democrats took action. We're invoking federal law and using our authority as a check on the executive to compel transparency. That's why today's letter matters. It's not a stunt. It's not symbolic. It's a formal exercise of congressional power under federal law. And we expect an answer from DOJ by August the 15th. That's what accountability looks like. This is what oversight looks like. And this is what keeping your promises to the American people look like. I urge my Republican colleagues in the Senate, if you believe in transparency, if you believe Congress has a role to play in checking the executive, join us. Join us in calling for more transparency on the Epstein files. Because once there's transparency, the truth emerges. Because once we get the truth, we can have accountability, we can move forward, not just on this, but on many issues affecting the American people, protecting health care, growing the middle class, defending democracy. But none of that is possible if the public loses faith that justice only applies to some, not all. Senator Peters has taken a great lead on this issue as ranking member of the Homeland Security Committee, and I'm proud to call on him to speak.
Thank you, Chuck. Well, thank you, Chuck. You know, the American people want and deserve transparency from their elected officials. On the campaign trail, President Trump promised many times to deliver that transparency by making the records in the Jeffrey Epstein case public. And now he is going back on that promise. This kind of reversal is what leads to distrust of elected officials. It also, we all know, it breeds conspiracy theories and misinformation. But the solution is very clear. Americans deserve transparency from congressional Republicans and the Trump administration. Our Republican colleagues are failing to conduct independent oversight of the administration and call for this information to be made public. Some have even publicly said they want to provide, and this is a member of the U.S. Senate, a Republican member, who said that they wanted to provide, quote, cover. Republican senators said it. They want to provide cover to President Trump after his reversal. And that's why my Homeland Security Committee Democratic colleagues and I are pressing the Justice Department to produce files related to the Jeffrey Epstein investigation. We are using very unique statutory authority that is granted only to our committee, to Homeland Security and Government Affairs. The statute that we are invoking requires the administration to hand over documents
And as
requested
time
by
went
any
on-
5 members of the Senate committee. This letter demands that the Justice Department produce documents that Attorney General Pam Bondi and FBI Director Akash Patel have publicly already confirmed they have in their possession. We all know, in fact, that the Attorney General said, quote, she said, they're sitting on her desk. It should be pretty easy to turn over documents that are sitting on the Attorney General's desk. It's certainly disappointing that we have to take this action to hold President Trump to his word, but we believe that providing this transparency is what is best for the American people. Joining me on that letter and also working in his own right as the ranking member of the Permanent Subcommittee of Investigations as part of my committee is Richard Blumenthal.
Thank you, Gary. Senator Blumenthal. Thank you. I want to thank, first of all, Senator Schumer for his leadership and Chairman Peters, Ranking Member Peters, for taking the lead here as well. This letter has the force of law. This letter invokes a statute that has been little used because it has been unnecessary in the past to enforce transparency. It's necessary now because this administration is stonewalling and stalling and concealing. And the American people are rightly asking, what do they have to hide? What's at stake here is not just the president's promises, although they are absolutely clear when he said, quote, President Trump says he will declassify the 9/11 files, JFK files, and Epstein files, end quote. That's President Trump. What's at stake here is more than the president's promises. It's the credibility of our justice system and the question whether there was proper criminal prosecution, whether it was complete and full, whether it was accurate, and what additional facts the American people are entitled to know. What's at stake is also the victims. This crime by Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell was not a victimless crime. It was not just about money laundering. It was not just about lying to the government. It was about exploiting women, in fact, girls. Girls who were mercilessly and repeatedly subject to abuse and trafficking. And that is why the American people have a right to know who else was involved, whether the system really was rigged in favor of the rich and powerful, which is what the suspicion has been on the part of a lot of the president's supporters and why they so enthusiastically greeted his promises of full disclosure. He's broken those promises. We're going to enforce the law to make him fulfill his commitments to be transparent and full in disclosure. Thank you. Thank you, Richard. We'll take questions on this subject first. Yes.
Would this law compel information that's under grand jury seal by the courts to be released to the committee? And are there other things that could be redacted, law enforcement?
Yeah, look, there can be redactions, and we're not going to break. Whoa, are you okay? We're not going to force any agreements that have been broken, but we believe almost everything can come out, barring any. Well, that'll have to be litigated. Yes.
Would you accept the Justice Department limiting the reading of these files to leadership or members in a...
I think they should be made public. I mean, certainly to the Congress and to the public. The public has a right to know. Including the interviews that were done recently with Maxwell in the last couple of days. All the notes that were taken, any recordings, should be made public as well. And, you know, the redactions that Senator Schumer mentioned are standard operating procedure in the Department of Justice when it does a report based on an investigation. It's rare, but it's not unusual. Yeah.
When the Justice Department...
Go ahead. You both can go. you want to go at once? We'll answer to. Go ahead. He goes first.
If they don't respond to your request, is there any enforcement mechanism? Is there any way for you guys?
Well, our hope is that our Republican colleagues will join us in this. This is a law. This has been made. It should be bipartisan, and we're still, Gary, we're still talking to Republican colleagues about trying to join us, and that may help get this public. But if not, there's recourse in the courts. This is the law.
And so
Yes.
how can Democrats, as the minority, take this to the courts?
There,
how that would work.
we have talked to some of our lawyers, and we will. This can be challenged in the courts.
Yeah.
Yes.
After the horrific shooting in New York and a police officer was killed, do you think it's a bad look for Senator Booker to be objecting to police and law enforcement?
Look, Senator Booker has strong beliefs on this issue. He's had them for a very long time. He believes in strong law enforcement. Yes.
Some of your Democratic colleagues have talked about making an amendment to the minibus related to the Epstein files. Will you use that for the NOMS negotiations that are going on?
Look, we on the initial minibus, we are running a hotline right now. Okay? Yes.
Emil Bovee was confirmed last night, even after a number of whistleblowers came forward, including some at the 11th hour. But what do you think this means going forward for future whistleblowers who are thinking about?
I think I said it was one of the low points, not only in this Congress, but in the history of Congress, to put a man like this in such an important position as a circuit court judge. It's a disgrace. He doesn't belong there. And our Republican, he only had one qualification. He'd do whatever Trump wants. That's a horrible qualification for a judge. Yes.
Thanks, Leader. What do you make of reporting that Republicans in the White House are lobbying against a stock trading ban in Congress here?
We Senate Democrats are for a stock trading ban. Okay. Thank you, everybody. Do you want to go ahead, Gary?
And we just passed it out of committee before this meeting here, and on a bipartisan basis.
And do you have any comment on Senator Hawley and Scott kind of going back and forth, arguing about it?
It was a spirited committee hearing, but the end result was that we passed it out and it now moves to the full Senate.
Thank you, everyone. Go ahead, Dick. Go ahead.
And thanks to Senator Hawley for championing this cause.
Yeah.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
I thank Senator Blumenthal and Senator Peters for championing this.
Alrighty, so you've been listening in there, Senator Blumenthal, Dick Durbin, Chuck Schumer there, all speaking. We will continue to monitor that. There, give me just a second. We're just getting our camera into this event over at the White House. That is a look there soon, Donald Trump to make remarks on health. So we will be watching for that when it comes. We'll bring you live coverage of it all. We are going to sneak in a quick break here. I will note, let's go over if we can. It's another story we are quickly following. A crash near Memphis. This is a look at the iDrive Arkansas camera. Let me get you guys some details. iDrive Arkansas says, okay, so there's actually two wrecks near West Memphis. We are watching the one that's on I-40 in Crittenden County. The other one is in St. Francis County. So we're watching this one in Crittenden County. It says traffic is being diverted off at exit 265. You can see that on the far left side of your screen. It says the eastbound, all lanes are being impacted. You see almost no traffic there. And if we can push the shot in just a little bit here, and I know we lose a little bit of quality there, but if we push the shot in, you see police presence. They're far in the distance. I mean, at this point in time, it's unknown kind of what happened in this crash and why it's blocking all traffic. But again, a crash here blocking traffic, that's really big story right now. You guys will hold with me. There we go. And let me put this feed back up. Excuse me, I know we're still zoomed in there. But also on the right, left side, far left side of your screen, you were able to see traffic being diverted. Again, this is on I-40 in Crittenden County. Let's go to this incident that is in St. Francis County, Arkansas. There is Maybe that camera doesn't show anything. Let's see if this one does. Doesn't look like it. So we don't really have a camera close to the incident. But what I can do is show you guys my screen. If you'll hold with me, I'll show you my screen. Excuse me. This is my screen. Let's go there. You can see this is the wreck farther down. This is in St. Francis County, south of Clark's Corner, north of Round Pond. Is kind of where this, what mile marker is this? This is at mile marker 250.1, 5.5 miles northeast of Madison, excuse me. It's affecting eastbound left lanes and the left shoulder lanes. There again, we were looking at cameras, and the closest we can get is possibly this one right here, but it's not showing anything. So we'll monitor this one. We're also looking at this one far north up I-40, much closer to West Memphis. You see West Memphis there. Is this truck parking? Oh, I didn't know they had a camera there. Learn something every day. So this is the camera that we were just looking at. So we will continue to monitor both these crashes on the eastern side of Arkansas, closer to West Memphis. Really, this is Memphis right here. So we will continue to monitor these two crashes here. We are going to sneak in a quick break, though. You are watching Brooklyn News Live. Alrighty, welcome back into Brooklyn News Live. I want to go to this event that occurred a little bit earlier with Fed Chair Jerome Powell. He spoke there and announced that Fed rates will remain steady, the same, for the fifth time in a row, noting that there was two people in the board that did dissent. This is Jerome Powell there. Let's go ahead. What we're going to do here, we'll listen in. And if we see President Trump, because we know it's this event that we're watching is expected to happen at the top of the hour, we'll interrupt here and bring that to you. Again, this is moments ago. Fed Chair Jerome Powell holding a press conference announcing that Fed rates will remain the same.
Decided to leave our policy interest rate unchanged. We believe that the current stance of monetary policy leaves us well positioned to respond in a timely way to potential economic developments. I will have more to say about monetary policy after briefly reviewing economic developments. Recent indicators suggest that growth of economic activity has moderated. GDP rose at a 1.2% pace in the first half of this year, down from 2.5% last year. Although the increase in the second quarter was stronger at 3%, focusing on the first half of the year helps smooth through the volatility in the quarterly figures related to the unusual swings in net exports. The moderation in growth largely reflects a slowdown in consumer spending. In contrast, business investment in equipment and intangibles picked up from last year's pace. Activity in the housing sector remains weak. In the labor market, conditions have remained solid. Payroll job gains averaged 150,000 per month over the past 3 months. The unemployment rate at 4.1% remains low and has stayed in a narrow range over the past year. Wage growth has continued to moderate while still outpacing inflation. Overall, a wide set of indicators suggests that conditions in the labor market are broadly in balance and consistent with maximum employment. Inflation has eased significantly from its highs in mid-2022, but remains somewhat elevated relative to our 2% longer-run goal. Estimates based on the Consumer Price Index and other data indicate that total PCE prices rose 2.5% over the 12 months ending in June, and that, excluding the volatile food and energy categories, core PCE prices rose 2.7%. These readings are little changed from the beginning of the year, although the underlying composition of price changes has shifted. Services inflation has continued to ease, while increased tariffs are pushing up prices in some categories of goods. Near-term measures of inflation expectations have moved up on balance over the course of this year on news about tariffs, as reflected in both market-based and survey-based measures. Beyond the next year or so, however, most measures of longer-term expectations remain consistent with our 2% inflation goal. Our monetary policy actions are guided by our dual mandate to promote maximum employment and stable prices for the American people. At today's meeting, the committee decided to maintain the target range for the federal funds rate at 4.25% to 4.5% and to continue reducing the size of our balance sheet. We will continue to determine the appropriate stance of monetary policy based on the incoming data, the evolving outlook, and the balance of risks. Changes to government policies continue to evolve, and their effects on the economy remain uncertain. Higher tariffs have begun to show through more clearly to prices of some goods, but their overall effects on economic activity and inflation remain to be seen. A reasonable base case is that the effects on inflation could be short-lived, reflecting a one-time shift in the price level. But it is also possible that the inflationary effects could instead be more persistent, and that is a risk to be assessed and managed. Our obligation is to keep longer-term inflation expectations well anchored and to prevent a one-time increase in the price level from becoming an ongoing inflation problem. For the time being, we're well positioned to learn more about the likely course of the economy and the evolving balance of risks before adjusting our policy stance. We see our current policy stance as appropriate to guard against inflation risks. We're also attentive to risks on the employment side of our mandate. In coming months, we will receive a good amount of data that will help inform our assessment of the balance of risks and the appropriate setting of the federal funds rate. At this meeting, the committee continued its discussions as part of our 5-year review of our monetary policy framework. We focused on potential revisions to our statement on longer-run goals and monetary policy strategy, and are on track to wrap up any modifications by late summer. The Fed has been assigned 2 goals for monetary policy: maximum employment and stable prices. We remain committed to supporting maximum employment, bringing inflation sustainably to our 2% goal, and keeping longer-term inflation expectations well anchored. Our success in delivering on these goals matters to all Americans. We understand that our actions affect communities, families, and businesses across the country. Everything we do is in service to our public mission. We at the Fed will do everything we can to achieve our maximum employment and price stability goals. Thank you. I look forward to your questions.
Thanks, Chair Powell. There's a lot of lean in the markets, and not to mention out of the administration for a rate cut now in September. Is that expectation unrealistic at this point?
So As you know, today we decided to leave our policy rate where it's been, where I would characterize as modestly restrictive. Inflation is running a bit above 2%, as I mentioned, even excluding tariff effects. The labor market's solid, historically low unemployment. Financial conditions are accommodative, and the economy is not performing as though restrictive policy were holding it back inappropriately. So it seems to me and to almost the whole committee that the economy is not performing as though restrictive policy is holding it back inappropriately, and modestly restrictive policy seems appropriate. All that said, there's also downside risk to the labor market. In coming months, we'll receive a good amount of data that will help inform our assessment of the balance of risks and the appropriate setting of the federal funds rate.
So just to follow up, by coming months, does that include the possibility you'll be getting essentially 2 rounds of jobs and inflation data between now and the September meeting? Is that potentially adequate to make a decision to lower rates at that point?
So you're right. We do have, this is an intermeeting period when we'll get 2 full rounds of employment and inflation data before the time of the September meeting. We have made no decisions about September. We don't do that in advance. We'll be taking that information into consideration and all the other information we get as we make our decision at the September meeting.
Steve.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You took out the word or the notion that uncertainty has diminished from this statement. Does that mean uncertainty has increased? And I'm just wondering, the administration has struck several deals with large trading partners where it seems like we now know what the rate is going to be. Does knowing that rate add to your certainty to change policy, or do you need to wait to see the economic effects?
So essentially, the statement in our statement about uncertainty reflects what's gone on since the last meeting. So at the time of the last meeting, uncertainty had moved down a little bit, but it was more or less even this time. So we took out, had diminished because it didn't diminish further. So there's not really much in that. And then your second question is, say again?
There have been several deals that have been struck, and now we seem to have an idea of what the tariff rates are going to be with some of our large trading partners. Does that not add to the kind of certainty you might need, or is it you're waiting for the economic effects to show themselves?
No, I think we're still, you're right, it's been a very dynamic time for these trade negotiations, and lots and lots of events in the intermeeting period, but we're still a ways away from seeing where things settle down. We are clearly getting more and more information, and I think at this point, people's estimates, our estimates, outside estimates of the likely effective level of tariffs is not moving around that much at this point. But at the same time, there are many uncertainties left to resolve. So yes, we are learning more and more. It doesn't feel like we're very close to the end of that process, and that's not for us to judge. But it feels like there's much more to come, as well, looking ahead.
Neil.
Hi, Mr. Chairman. Neil Irwin with Axios. This morning we got a GDP report in which final domestic private purchases decelerated, slowest pace since 22. There was a weakness in the interest-sensitive sectors and residential investment, commercial structures. Are those not signs that monetary policy is a little too restrictive right now, given current economic conditions?
So the GDP and PDFP numbers came in pretty much right where we expected them to come in. You got to look at the whole picture. So certainly, as I mentioned in my opening remarks, economic activity data, GDP, private domestic final purchases, which we think is a narrower but better signal for future, for where the economy is going, has come down to a little better than 1%, 1.2%, I think, in the case of GDP for the first half, whereas it was 2.5% last year. So that has certainly come down. But if you look at the labor market, what you see is, by many, many statistics, the labor market is kind of still in balance. It's things like quits, job openings, and let alone the unemployment rate. They're all by many measures, very similar to where they were a year ago. So you do not see weakening in the labor market. You do see a slowing in job creation, but also a slowing in the supply of workers. So you've got a labor market that's in balance, albeit partially because both demand and supply for workers is coming down at the same pace, and that's why the unemployment rate has remained roughly stable, which is why I said we do see downside risk in the labor market. I mean, our two mandate variables, right, are inflation and maximum employment, stable prices and maximum employment, not so much growth. So the labor market looks solid. Inflation is above target, and even if you look through the tariff effects, we think it's still a bit above target, and that's why our stance is where it is. But as I mentioned, downside risks to the labor market are certainly apparent.
So on labor, given the fluid labor supply situation, is there a number for this jobs report we get on Friday that would look to you like equilibrium job growth?
The main number you have to look at now is the unemployment rate, because if it's true that the demand for workers in the form of, let's call it, just say payroll jobs, that number has come down, but so has the break-even number, kind of in tandem. So, as long as that puts the labor market in balance, the fact that it's getting into balance due to declines in both supply and demand, though, I think it is suggestive of downside risk. So we of course will be watching that carefully.
Thank you. Colby Smith with the New York Times. Two of your colleagues called for a quarter-point cut today, and I'm wondering what aspects of their argument were most compelling to you and how you're weighing their views against those on the committee who, as of the June forecast, were in the camp of the Fed holding interest rates steady for the remainder of the year. And just in terms of the June SEP in particular, is that still the best representation of where the core of the committee is?
So on the dissents, what you want from everybody and also from a dissenter is a clear explanation of what your thinking is and what are the arguments you're making, and we had that today. So I think basically this was quite a good meeting all around the table where people were thought carefully about this and put their positions out there. As I mentioned, the sort of the majority of the committee was of the view that inflation's a bit above target, maximum employment is at target.
I want to turn now to some breaking news that we are just getting in here. We have learned that a trade deal has been made. This news, again, just in President Trump announcing it on his social media page. I want to go to that announcement now. This just in here, it says, quote, I'm going to look over here to read it. It says, we are very busy in the White House today working on trade deals. I have spoken to the leaders of many countries, all of whom want to make the United States, quote, extremely happy. I will be meeting with the South Korean trade delegation this afternoon. South Korea is right now at a 25% tariff, but they have made an offer to buy down those tariffs. I will be interested in hearing what the offer is. We have just concluded a deal with the country of Pakistan, whereby Pakistan and the United States will work together on developing their massive oil reserves. We are in process of choosing the oil company that will lead this partnership. Who knows? Maybe they'll be selling oil to India someday. Likewise, other countries are making offers for a trade reduction. All of this will help reduce our trade deficit in a very major way. A full report will be released at the appropriate time. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Make America great again. Again, that announcement just coming in from President Donald Trump on his social media page, Truth Social, saying again that they're very busy in the White House, saying that they just concluded a deal with the country of Pakistan, whereby they're going to work together on making oil reserves. So that news just in here on this yet just another very busy news day that we are continuing to follow these new developments that are continuing to come in at this hour. So we will monitor that, just checking in on Donald Trump's Truth Socials, and that is the news that we got. And we were just watching that press conference there from Jerome Powell there. We'll listen back in here in just a moment, but I do want to know, this was Trump's reaction to that. He says, two-quarter GDP just out 3%, way better than expected. Quote, too late, which is who he's referring to, Fed Chair Jerome Powell. He has said that he would call him too late must now lower the rate, no inflation, let people buy and refinance their homes. That was at 7:38 a.m. So that was a little bit before the announcement. I don't believe we've gotten anything coming in from a little after that. We have a massive trade deficit with India. Okay. So again, that news again just in on Donald Trump's True Social. We will continue to monitor that. Let's go back over to this event with Fed Chair Jerome Powell, where press members are continuing to ask questions. Stand by here. Gotta fix. Let's go back. Before we do that, though, I do want to know we are monitoring this right here. This event over at the White House, where soon we are expecting President Donald Trump to speak on health. We will continue to monitor that. Let's go again back over to this event that occurred earlier today, where Fed Chair Jerome Powell took questions after keeping rates the exact same, essentially. Let's listen back in there.
I think you have to think of this as still quite early days. And so I think what we're seeing now is substantial amounts of tariff revenue being collected on the order of $30 billion a month, which is, substantially higher than before. And the evidence seems to be mostly not paid only to a small extent through exporters lowering their price, and companies or retailers, sort of people who are upstream, institutions that are upstream from the consumer, are paying most of this for now. Consumers it's starting to show up in consumer prices, as you know, in the June report. We expect to see more of that. And we know from surveys that companies feel that they have every intention of putting this through to the consumer, but the truth is they may not be able to in many cases. So I think we're just going to have to watch and learn empirically how much of this and over what period of time. I think we've learned that the process will probably be slower than expected at the beginning, but we never expected it to be fast. We think we have a long way to go to really understand exactly how it will be. So that's how we're thinking of it right now.
So if I could follow up, is the reticence to look through core goods inflation being driven by the judgment that during the pandemic expectations proved more adaptive than anyone at the Fed expected? Is it being driven by uncertainty over how restrictive policy is?
You could argue we are a bit looking through goods inflation by not raising rates. We haven't reacted to new inflation, but I mean, I wouldn't insist upon that. But I don't think, I think the base case, as I said, a reasonable base case is that these are one-time price effects. Of course, in the end, there will not be. This will not turn out to be inflation, because we'll make sure that it's not. We will, through our tools, make sure that this does not move from being a one-time price increase to serious inflation. We want to do that efficiently, though, and that means we want to do it. If you move too soon, you wind up maybe not getting inflation all the way fixed, and you have to come back. That's inefficient. If you move too late, you might do unnecessary damage to the labor market. So there won't be, in the end, a big inflationary problem. What we're trying to do is accomplish that in a way that is efficient. But in the end, there should be no doubt that we will do what we need to do to keep inflation under control. Ideally, we do it efficiently.
Michael McKee from Bloomberg Television and Radio. The one big bill, leaving aside the adjectives, do you expect it to add stimulus to the economy in 2026? And would that be an argument for remaining on hold or cutting back on the number of rate cuts you would expect for next year?
So, of course, let me just ritual disclaimer that we don't express any judgments or anything like that on fiscal legislation or other legislation for that matter. But I would say when you think that, the biggest part of the bill was making permanent existing law on taxes, I don't think we see it as particularly stimulative. There should be some stimulative effect, but it shouldn't be significant over the next couple of years.
And to follow up, I don't want to put this in terms of you and the president, so let me ask it this way. Do you have concerns about the cost to the government of keeping rates elevated for longer in terms of interest rate charges?
Yeah, no, that's, we have a mandate, and that's maximum employment and price stability. And it is, it's not something we do to consider the cost to the government of our rate changes. We have to be able to look at the goal variables Congress has given us, use the tools they've given us to achieve those goals, and that's what we do. We don't consider the fiscal needs of the federal government. No advanced economy central bank does that, and it wouldn't be good for, if we did do that, it would be good neither for our credibility nor for the credibility of U.S. fiscal policy. So it's just not something we take into consideration.
Victoria. Hi, Victoria Guida with Politico. When it comes to the renovations of the Federal Reserve's headquarters,
Alrighty, so what we're going to do here, we will monitor this event there. So we do want to keep you guys with it. We don't want to break away from coverage too soon. We will keep following this event on the right side of me here now, Fed Chair Jerome Powell there. But what we are going to do is pivot now to this event that is occurring with the National Traffic Safety Board. So essentially what is occurring, and we'll provide some context here. Give me a second, maybe we will. There we go. Okay. So we'll provide some context here. Essentially what is occurring is the National Traffic Safety Board is holding a hearing on this January 29th crash. If you remember, soon after President Donald Trump took office, when a Black Hawk military helicopter and a regional jet collided over the Potomac River, both falling into the river. It killed the jet, 60 passengers and 4 crew members, including the 2 pilots. All 3 on the helicopter were also killed. This is a hearing on improving safety at the D.C. airport because it is been found that it is an extremely busy airport and a lack of air traffic controllers is causing issues, and that's something that I believe even the Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy has admitted. He's asked people to stay following their retirement to be an air traffic controller, the retirement age rather. So, give me 1 second. Sorry, guys. I am getting a graphic ready really quickly here. Quick graphic ready. Okay, maybe not. Okay, I'm gonna turn the audio up here. We'll listen in, and a lower dirb will pop up eventually.
Operating on Route 4 with aircraft arriving or departing National Airport?
The airport in general, yes, sir.
Thank you. Just over Mr. Stowe or Ms. Murphy, just regarding the charted helicopter routes, are they considered ATC instructions?
No, they are not. They're recommended paths.
Okay. And then if the paths are only recommended, how does one know when to use the recommendation or not? What is the expectation?
To follow air traffic control guidance.
So they would be cleared on the recommended route?
That is my understanding.
Okay, thank you. And then just with the design of the route, is the intent of the route to be separated from other routes or other obstacles, aircraft, anything along those lines?
I don't know the answer to that.
I can add that it's probably very situationally dependent locally on what the, I guess, the needs are of the facility. It probably depends, or I would suggest it depends heavily on complexity, need to standardize, or, I guess, standardize the traffic flow for the purpose of ensuring separation. And would defer to DCA locally as to whether or not that's something they desired or had built in.
Thank you. Mr. Allen, did you believe Route 4 was separated from the runway 33 arrivals?
No.
Thank you. And then Route 4, the helicopter Route 4, do you believe it provided a benefit to the operation?
It provided a benefit to expedite the movement of helicopters.
Thank you. And then, Mr. Fuller, just a follow-on question from earlier. Air traffic, I think you stated something along the lines of air traffic is required to separate the aircraft operating on Route 4 from other aircraft. Could you explain the tools or the methods that air traffic control can use to separate helicopters, for example, from aircraft?
Absolutely. They can assign altitudes. They have a certified tower radar display, and they're trained on providing suggested headings, altitudes, courses to deconflict those aircraft. In addition to visual holding is another tool. They can instruct the helicopter to hold at a prominent obstruction like Haynes Point, like was previously mentioned. There's a myriad of options for controllers in Class B to provide positive control there.
And thank you. And I should have mentioned pre-accident in the rules. Is there any rules in place that can transfer the separation responsibility from air traffic?
Yes. Prior to the accident in the DCA Class Bravo airspace, if the pilot reports traffic in sight and advise they will maintain separation from it, the controller only need to approve it, the operation, or they could issue the traffic and then instruct the pilot to maintain visual separation from that aircraft. They are still required to maintain Class B separation before and after the application of visual separation. And in that particular case, in this operation, they would normally advise the other aircraft that traffic hazard in sight is maintaining visual separation.
Thank you. No further questions.
Thank you very much. FAA.
Thank you, ma'am. Chief Warrant Officer Van Vechten, can NVG be qualified in a simulator?
No, you cannot.
Okay. Mr. Stowe, if routes are not procedurally separated, what's required to maintain legal separation in Class B airspace?
In Class B airspace, it would be dependent on a number of the tools previously mentioned by Mr. Fuller. The radar separation requirement would be 1.5 miles and 500 feet for a VFR target from a IFR, VFR, or fixed-wing aircraft weighing 19,000 pounds or more, or target resolution are 500 feet for aircraft if it involves aircraft weighing less than 19,000 pounds. There's also tower-provided visual separation, that's an option, as well as visual, as was previously described.
Thank you. Mr. Allen, for visual separation, once approved, who's responsible for maintaining that visual separation?
Are you referring to pilot or tower applied?
Pilot.
Pilot applied, it is incumbent on the pilot.
Thank you. That's all I have. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you very much. ALPA.
Thank you, Chair. First question is from Command Chief Officer Van Vechten. How often are routes 1 and 4 used for night vision goggle check rides?
I would say more often than not. It was one of our primary routes, and in my opinion, I saw it as one of the safest routes because 96% of traffic utilizes runway 119, so 96% of the time you're parallel with traffic, and it's not a factor.
So that would be the why then for this case is why it was used.
Correct, yes, sir.
Just to follow up, so you say that it's 96% is mainly going to runway 1, but even so, this is a complex airspace. Do you think it is an airspace where potentially we could limit NVG check rides and do those someplace else, where it would be potentially more beneficial to get away from the congestion?
Because of the unit's mission, I do not think it would be more beneficial to move the annual check ride from there. You must be familiar with your airspace that you're expected to operate in when conditions are not ideal. So on a check ride is when we would train those pilots to fly there.
Is it possible to do something more in lines of a familiar, like a FAM flight versus an actual check ride in that space? Because check rides, and at least in my experience and understanding of it, it's a bit more of a high pressure situation for a pilot being evaluated.
Sure. Local area orientations are always conducted prior to the check ride. You would never take your initial flight in the DC Helo routes as your check ride. The DC Helo routes, Route 1, 3, 5, and 1, 3, 4, 5, and 7 are part of the local area orientation checklist. So you must have seen those routes prior to taking a check ride.
Okay. Was there any Army guidance to maintain a minimum lateral distance from the shoreline?
No.
Okay, so there was no internal of, hey, we fly right over the shore or hug the shore, maybe not written anywhere, but sort of procedural or technique only?
Yes, sir. We'll call that tribal knowledge is hug the shoreline while traveling south or northbound, unless you have opposing traffic and you have to utilize rules of the road.
Of course. Is there a safety or risk assessment that is accomplished prior to each helicopter training or operational flight?
Yes.
Are air carriers and proximity to runway environments included in that assessment?
No, they're not currently on our assessment.
Okay. This is going to be, we'll pivot to Colonel DeForester. From an Army organizational perspective, was a risk analysis ever done on operations in DC airspace?
It would have been included in the previously referenced risk assessment. So we have, part of the risk approval process, you're going to receive your mission, you'll do detailed planning, rehearsals, map rehearsals, TTXs, talk to your briefing officers, things of that nature. So yes, we do conduct rigorous risk assessments prior to each flight.
So it is specific then to the individual pilot risk assessment that pilot does and then brings that to specific other personnel within your structure?
Absolutely, and there's a lot of different considerations. You're going to look at the crew, the composition of the crew, the environment, the tasks to be trained. So all those items that introduce, or those aviation risk factors are discussed.
And once again, just to clarify, was runway 33 approach traffic included specifically in this risk analysis?
Not on the 29 January risk analysis, or RCOP.
Was it in general, and is it now, in general, was it ever included?
It is now, after the accident.
And were also the limitations of seeing traffic with cultural lighting under NVGs in that specific area also considered?
On the day of the accident, or the night of the accident, yes, that's
Or
included.
any previous with cultural lighting in that specific area? Is it just a general practice to consider cultural lighting in that area?
Absolutely. Time of day, cultural lighting, illumination, weather, things of that nature. So yes.
Thank you, sir. Back to you, Mr. Van Vechten. Just to clarify once again, I'm sorry we've asked this point so many times, but you were under the impression that procedurally helos were required to hold if aircraft were landing on runway 33. Is that correct?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
So if you were cleared to transit onto Route 4 and then were told there was traffic circling to land at runway 33, would you have assumed there was procedurally something incorrect and that you were potentially in conflicting airspace?
Hypothetically, if that had happened, I would either query Tower, or I would probably at Haynes Point have made a left turn to go northbound on Route 1 towards Greenbelt.
Or possibly just hold at Haynes Point as well?
Correct.
Okay. Another one for you, sir. What is your normal crew composition for night training missions?
What do you mean night composition, sir?
Specifically, is there a minimum requirement for your crew to crew the aircraft? I'm assuming left seat, right seat, and then one crew chief in the back?
Yes, sir, that's the minimum. Pilot, co-pilot, and crew chief.
Was there ever consideration given to doing two crew chiefs in the back to increase see and avoid potential or just visibility outside the aircraft?
There are certain mission sets that require a second additional crew chief. External load operations, medevac operations will have a second one, but an additional set of eyes doesn't necessarily increase safety. In this case, the crew chief was sitting on the left side, so in the best position to see the aircraft. So an additional crew chief would not have increased the safety
Thank you, sir. That's my time.
Thank you very much. Before the second round by the parties, we're going to go ahead and take I'd prefer a 10-minute break so we can get back into it. I'm going to ask if there is a line that people let the board members go first in the restroom so we can come back and convene everyone. Sorry to pull rank there. Thank you so much.
Alrighty, so we have been listening in there to a hearing on the plane collision that occurred in the District of Columbia, DC, Washington, DC. So we will continue to monitor that one. When they come back, they are in a short break there. So, President Trump is expected to make remarks on technology, so let's take you live out there. And not much there to see. That event was expected to get underway at the top of the hour. It's now 30 minutes past that time, and we are still awaiting for it to get underway. A quick break. Actually, let's provide an update. Give me 1 second. Let's go over to an update on that crash we were following just a few moments ago. Live look at that iDrive Arkansas camera. Take a look there. A crash on I-40 near West Memphis has cleared. We were monitoring that a little earlier in the hour, and the police presence caused a lot of traffic to be blocked. To see on the left side of your screen, that is where traffic was diverted in the time being. Now traffic still moving on that interstate. You're watching Brookland News Live. A quick break. We got much more coming up. Welcome back into Brooklyn News Live. I'm Jackson Mitchell. So good to be with you. It is Wednesday, 3:34 p.m. Still standing by for President Donald Trump over at this event there. Oh, and let's go right now because Linda McMohan has just walked in. She's in that pink shirt there on the right side of your screen, sitting down. She is just sit down. You also see Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent there on the left side of her. Trying to look for some more familiar faces. Appears that this event might be getting underway here. RFK Jr. Walking on the stage, as well as some other education officials there and health officials. My apologies. Let's turn the audio up if we can. Music continues to play as they enter the room. Possibly standing by for President Donald Trump. So, again, standing by for President, I'm assuming the President to walk out here. Seeing the health officials there on your screen as the music is continuing to play in that room. We have RFK Jr. Unable to read. Here comes the last health official there. As this event is soon to get underway here. We are monitoring it. Really, at this point in time, waiting for the President to walk out so that this event can begin to get underway here. The President has yet to walk out there. Let's, turn this down because the soft music is continuing to play there. This is expected to be about the Make America Healthy Again initiative. You saw the Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. there. Let's turn the audio up because we might hear from the President.
Ladies and gentlemen, the President of the United States.
And we have a lot of great people here, and we've been looking forward to this day, but we sort of look forward to every day because we have a lot of surprises, most of which are good. Today you saw GDP was much higher than anticipated, and Scott, good job. Scott Bessent's been working, just got back from a little excursion and a meeting with China in Europe. And that went well. We've done very well with the EU deal. It's a very big deal, I guess. They say the biggest trade deal ever made by far, probably is. Just completed Japan and many other countries. And hundreds of billions of dollars is flowing into our country. We've never seen anything even close. And that's not me saying it, that's everybody saying it. And it's going to be something really, really very special. Maybe even more importantly, factories for AI and for cars and for lots of other things are being built in this country or planned to be built very shortly. They'll be starting. And where they need great amounts of energy, like for AI, they're going to be, I've given them approval. And Lee Zeldin has given them very fast approval to build their own electric powering plants, and they'll build them with the factory, so we don't have to worry about an ancient grid and all of the other problems, the obstacles people thought we were going to have that would make it impossible. And we're leading AI by a lot, and I think people are very impressed with our country. As they said, the King of Saudi Arabia and various leaders, and just about every leader I can even imagine. We were in the Middle East and Qatar, UAE, Saudi Arabia, they said, 1 year ago, your country was dead, and today you have the hottest country anywhere in the world, and that's true. So I congratulate everybody in the room that's helped, but we're doing a good job together. I'd like to begin by saying a few words about the unbelievable kind of numbers that we've been putting up. And as I said, the number of 3%, the pace in the second quarter, we smashed all expectations. They thought it would be maybe a little bit less than 2, and it was 3, a little bit more than 3. Consumer spending is up. Business investment is way up. Domestic manufacturing is way up. Real disposable family income is up, and personal savings are up. Other than that, we're not doing so great. We have the hottest country, and I'll tell you, it's a great. We're having a lot of fun with it. At the same time, we dramatically slashed government spending for the second quarter in a row, down nearly 4%, which people were surprised at. We do a lot of cutting also. The private sector has boomed with nearly 600,000 jobs added, way above expectations, while we have reduced the federal workforce by 70,000 jobs. So these are private jobs that are coming back to our country. Federal jobs are being cut. Critics said that our tariffs would hurt the economy, but the data shows the exact opposite, and the exact opposite is happening. The U.S. Treasury has taken in $150 billion from tariffs, and we'll be adding about $200 billion next month for totals that nobody's ever seen before, frankly. And foreign imports were down 30% in the second quarter, while the domestic auto production surged by a stunning 36%. How about that number, Dr. Oz? Right? That's good. That's good. We want to do that with your patients, too. We'll have a very healthy, we're going to have a very healthy country. At the same time, inflation continues to fall faster than expectations, and for the 5th consecutive month, core inflation was lower than predicted substantially. This is truly the dawn of the golden age of America. That's what we're in. We want to keep it that way. This afternoon, we're gathered to announce another historic victory for the American people, very important one. Today, the dream of easily transportable electronic medical records finally becomes a reality. I want to thank Secretary Scott Bessent, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. for joining us, as well as Administrator of the Centers for Medicine and Medicaid Services, Dr. Mehmet Oz, all friends of mine. White House AI and crypto czar David Sachs, and Acting Administrator of DOJ, Amy Gleason, all here. And we have various great senators here. Senator Round, Senator Cassidy, thank you very much for being here and helping out. I also want to thank representatives from Apple, Google, Samsung, Amazon, OpenAI, Anthropic, Epic, Oracle, Athena, Health, Noom, and that's not a bad group of people. Wow. And they're the top people. We don't play games. You know, when you invite people to the White House, the top ones, that's a big net worth sitting in this room right now. Boy, oh boy, we better make sure the room is nice and safe. It's half the net worth of our country. I'm also grateful to be joined by numerous congressmen. I'm not going to name you if you don't mind. I'll probably never get their vote again, but it's too many. Thank you very much for being here. The Congress has been great. Senators have been great, and the congressmen and women have been great. We just passed the most important, I think, look, I can't say most important, but certainly one of the most, but the most consequential and the largest bill in the history of Congress. And I call it the great, big, beautiful bill. We call it different names, but it all means the same thing. For decades, America's healthcare networks have been overdue for a high-tech upgrade, and that's what we're doing. The existing systems are often slow, costly, and incompatible with one another. But with today's announcement, we take a major step to bring healthcare into the digital age, something that is absolutely vital. You got to do it. Moving from clipboards and fax machines into a new era of convenience, profitability, and speed, and frankly, better health for people. Under the leadership of Administrator Oz, we're officially launching the CMS Digital Health Tech Ecosystem to give healthcare providers, insurers, and software companies the tools they need to empower Americans with a 21st century experience on health. The key breakthrough we've made is getting many of the biggest names in the healthcare and technology to agree to industry-wide standards for electronic medical records. All of those great companies that you just heard have gotten together with this group of very brilliant people. I don't know who's more brilliant, them or them. I don't know. Could be them. I hate to tell you. It could very well be them. But I don't know. I'm going to take my team. But the key breakthrough we've made is getting many of the biggest names in healthcare and technology to agree to that those standards of electronic medical records that we talk about and you've heard about for so many years, and now it's happening. This will allow patients to easily transmit information from one doctor to another, even if they're different networks and using different record-keeping systems. No matter what system they use, they're all transferable. The new standards will also make it simple for patients to access their own personal health records. I don't want to see mine, please. I don't want to see. I don't know about you. They have all sorts of things. Sir, they can tell you exactly what your problem is going to be in 6 years. We can do it. You know, they have all these different things. I don't know if they work or not, but I didn't want to hear it. I didn't want to hear it. If they got a problem, I don't want to know about it right now. But it is amazing what they're doing. I don't know, does it actually work? Can they do that? All right, well, then I'm glad I said I don't want to know. But thanks to this announcement, healthcare providers across the country will also finally be able to kill the clipboard. It's an expression that's used, capital, with a capital C, kill the clipboard. Instead of filling out the same tedious paperwork at every medical appointment, patients will simply be able to grant their doctors access to their records at the push of a button, just a button, and you're all set, and all the information the doctor needs will be immediately transmitted. The system will be entirely opt-in, and there will be no centralized government-run database, which everyone is always concerned about. I'm less concerned than anybody. I say whatever it is, but people are very, very concerned about the personal records. They want to keep them very quiet, and that's their choice. I think it's a great thing because it'll be absolutely quiet. Instead, doctors and patients will always remain in control. The benefits to millions of Americans will be enormous. We will save time, we will save money, and most importantly, we'll save lives. It's just going to make people live longer and be a lot healthier. I think that's really what you're looking to do. And now I'd like to ask Secretary Kennedy to say a few words, followed by David Sachs, Dr. Oz, and Amy Gleason. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. And I just want to begin by making a comment that is irrelevant to what we're gathered here today to talk about. But I've been coming to this building for 65 years, and I have to say that it's never looked better. I've spent some time in the Oval Office, which really it's been transformed. And I was looking at a picture of the Oval Office the other day when I was there, when I was a kid with my uncle. And, you know, it was extraordinary. It's always extraordinary to go into that sacred space. But I have to say that it looked kind of drab in the pictures. And they were black and white pictures, but it looked drab. And it looks the opposite of drab today. And I think, I know all these portraits, I hope you get a chance to look at them when you go out there, that they were handpicked by the president. And many of them hijacked from other agencies that were trying to keep them. But I mean, you know, my uncle, my aunt, Jackie, who were deeply committed to design, to beauty, and who understood that it's important to have our public buildings be beautiful because it inspires us, it elevates the human spirit. It's one of the, it is a template, and it's an example, an exemplar for democracy, the releasing through freedoms of the creativity of the human spirit. And this building, of all buildings, should look beautiful. And under your stewardship, it looks extraordinary today. So thank you, Mr. President, for that. About 3 weeks ago, I met with the Indonesian health minister. And Indonesia today is regarded as the highest flourishing nation on earth. Since 1990, it has increased the lifespan of its women by 8 years, of its men by 9 years. There's no country that has a record like that. And there are two major innovations that allowed them to achieve that extraordinary outcome. And one of those was to disincentivize people from eating processed foods. Oh, you are paid not to eat processed foods, and you are penalized for eating processed foods. The other innovation that really transformed Indonesia was allowing people control of their individual health records. He showed me the app that they use that everybody in Indonesia has. And it shows your height, your weight, your blood type, your BMI, your cardiac markers, your diabetes markers, your cholesterol, and any kind of individualized treatments that you had. So if you go to a doctor in another town, he doesn't do what we have to do here, which is to sit there with a clipboard and a fax machine in order to get your health records. It's available, and it allows them to give better treatment. It also allows you to make better choices over your life. And there's other apps like Yaka in Indonesia that allow you to choose good foods when you go to the grocery store. So you can turn your app on your phone and you can get full information of those foods. Well, now if you have your medical records, you can get personalized advice. And that app will also give you advice about a better alternative. So we're going to be able to, Dr. Oz and I met with the former Prime Minister Rudd of Australia just after the election during the transition phase. And he, after his retirement as Prime Minister, he ran a commission to reorganize the Australian health system, and they revolutionized it, and they vastly improved health in Australia. And he said the single thing that he did that was most important to that transformation was the transparency that occurs when people control their own health records. Because it gives people the choice over their own health decisions and over their own lives, and it gives them a sense of responsibility and allows them to measure the interventions if they change their diet, if they change their exercise. It can show you how many steps you took today. It can tell you if your glucose is spiking. And all of that information will now be available to American citizens. 60 years ago today, we passed Medicaid and Medicare in this country. And we have 60 CEOs in this room of these extraordinary companies, some of which the president just mentioned, that have all agreed voluntarily to start sharing information. President Trump, during his first term, passed the interoperability rule. And it was intended to do this for 20 years. The federal government has been trying to do this. Everybody recognizes it's absolutely critical innovation for us advancing the health of American citizens, to give them responsibility and to give them control over their own healthcare choices. And unfortunately, you ran out of time the last time around. President Trump gave us instructions that he wanted this to happen within 6 months. We barely made it under the wire thanks to Dr. Oz's leadership. And within 6 months, every American's going to be doing it thanks to the cooperation of the corporate leaders in this room. You know, about 3 months ago, I met with the food executives, and I asked them to voluntarily come forward and get rid of food dyes, of the 9 synthetic petroleum dyes. And this is something, again, the government, Democrats and Republicans have been trying to do for 20 years. And the industry came forward, and now 40% of the food industry in this country has taken the pledge to remove food dyes from all of their foods. That happened because of your leadership, Mr. President. A month ago, we got, after a lot of work by Chris Klump and Dr. Oz and a lot of other people in our agency, we got all the insurance executives to come together in our country and in our offices and agree to get rid of pre-authorization for 80% of the DSM codes. This is a voluntary agreement. 80% of the industry has now agreed to do that. So this is happening because of good leadership. President Trump, you've asked us to think big, you've inspired us to dream big, and you've enabled us to accomplish things that no other president has been able to do. So I want to thank you for your leadership, for allowing this to happen, and with your leadership, we're going to make America healthy again. Now I want to introduce my friend, my colleague, the crypto czar, the acting administrator of Doge, David Sachs.
Thank you, Secretary Kennedy. I recently got a text message from a friend whose wife has been suffering from a chronic illness for something like a decade, and they've been trying to figure out what it is. They've never been able to figure it out. And I just want to read this to you right off my phone. He said, I uploaded my wife's blood work into one of our leading AI engines on Friday. It essentially diagnosed her as having a rare genetic defect that causes bone marrow failure. It's caused every single thing that's happened to her. She has every single symptom. It started at exactly the same age of presentation. It's 10 people out of 1 million. There's absolutely no way this is not it. So wow, it's really an incredible example of what AI is already able to do just today, and we're just getting started. And this was one person putting his wife's data in one of our consumer AI apps, and he's already been able to get that diagnosis, and that's going to help them tremendously. The key is the unlocking of the data, because the more data that AI has, the better it performs. And so, kudos to Dr. Oz and Secretary Kennedy for this pledge today. They were able to get 60 major companies across different sectors of the economy to agree to unlock their data so that AI can use it to drive better patient outcomes. And this is, all due to your leadership and President Trump's leadership to put the American people's healthcare needs first. And I remember Dr. Oz, he was one of the first people to call me during the transition when the president announced I'd be AI czar, because he wanted to ask me about how AI could better be used in healthcare. So kudos to you, Dr. Oz. Your passion's really incredible. And kudos to you, Secretary Kennedy, your passion as well. And I remember a couple of years ago, I was a big fan of Bobby Kennedy when he was running as a Democrat. And I remember thinking...
He gave a lot more money than President Trump.
Well, I remember thinking there's this one problem with Bobby Kennedy. He's not a Republican. But thanks to President Trump, I think we fixed that. So, and I think that, getting people like Dr. Oz and Bobby Kennedy into the administration is a testament to President Trump and the talent that he's able to attract and pull together, and the partnerships that he's able to forge, because these are people who could be doing other things. So it's really a testament to the great talent that President Trump always attracts around him. Today's pledge by these companies is going to tear down barriers that allows both startups and established firms to compete freely. We're opening up the playing field so that the best tools can scale, compete on value, and discover new methods for making Americans healthy again. Technologies like AI, they do things like they will expand access to care, cut administrative costs, reduce fraud, and deliver better results for patients and doctors. And I want to thank you, President Trump, for your promise to not only make Americans healthy again, but also to ensure that America is a predominant AI superpower. Just last week, you announced a major AI action plan with hundreds of billions of dollars of new investment in AI infrastructure, and also getting red tape out of the way so that we can be the leading country in AI. And it's these life-saving applications that are going to be built on top of all of that infrastructure. So thank you for your leadership in making the United States the #1 country in AI.
David, thank you.
And now, Dr. Oz, we'll take it from here.
Mr. President, today we are making American health technology remarkably great again. We've always been at the leadership. David's right, I called him early on after the president offered me the position and him as well. And we began brainstorming on this. Secretary Kennedy from day one appreciated the crisis that we're in and how we needed to address it. So today is a remarkably important day, one that you will remember, I believe, for years to come for 3 reasons. Yes, it is the 60th birthday of Medicare and Medicaid. The first patient, by the way, was Harry S. Truman. Although Lyndon Johnson signed the legislation 60 years ago today, not far from here. It is not just the ability to bring 60 of the top incumbents and insurgents in health technology, hospital systems, insurance companies, electronic medical record companies, AI companies, the big players. You're all here, and we appreciate that very much. But, Mr. President, you used the power to convene. That's fundamentally what I think the president has been able to offer us. And Secretary Kennedy offered us, as a group, some examples, but there are more to come. And I want to touch on some of these. But first, I've got to do what doctors often have to do, which is to tell you the truth, even if you don't want to hear it. So here goes. These beautiful programs, which are the backbone of the social network, the social support system of this country, the safety net, they're flailing. They're flailing for a bunch of reasons. Medicaid is a unique entity. It has deviated from its original purpose by drift and by design. The One Big Beautiful Bill, the OB3 law, was elegant for that very reason. And President, I don't know if you remember this, I can share this, but he called me once and he was upset at me because I was going too strident at something. And he said, this is about fraud, waste, and abuse. That's what we're interested in doing. And that's exactly what the One Big Beautiful Bill accomplished. And it especially did it to save Medicaid by putting $200 billion more into it and allocating funds very specifically to use to support rural America. And primarily, some of that money will be used to support digital infrastructure, which is terribly lacking in many parts of the country. The money that's sent from Washington doesn't get to rural America. About 7% of Medicaid dollars get to rural hospitals. We now have an ability to infuse funds through this $50 billion Rural Health Transformation Fund into that system. The gathering today is another example of how we can actually jumpstart that and accelerate it. The other reality is COVID broke the system. It did for many reasons. Medicaid expenses went up 50% in 5 years. Medicare, the trust fund that we met at actually Treasury with Secretary Bessent and Secretary Kennedy as trustees, it goes bankrupt in 2033. And that is actually a conservative estimate. It could go bankrupt as early as 2029. Thankfully, due to the economy, that's not going to happen. But we don't want to have to take that risk. And there's some fundamental changes we need to make accordingly. Now, there's one other big reality about making the system more efficient, which is why what everyone here is talking about is so critical. And let's just pick an average American born in 1964. That average American born in 64 will retire this year at age 61. If just that one group of people born in 64 could work 3 years longer because they're healthy, because they feel like they want to do it, because they feel vital and vigorous and they're flourishing, just that 1 year working longer is $1 trillion to the U.S. GDP and is $300 billion of tax revenue to pay for a lot of the problems that people are concerned about. So it's not just keeping people out of the hospital, getting them to thrive and flourish that makes what we're doing so critical today. I think there are a lot of realities to how healthcare has gone. Unfortunately, the system is frozen, and it has been for many reasons, despite efforts in the first administration. It's frozen in time, so it cannot address the quality lags that exist. While Netflix and Airbnb and Uber drivers are racing ahead, making arrangements, identifying the problems that are challenging us in healthcare have become incredibly difficult. You can't make appointments. The average Americans are tired. They're tired of waiting for a doctor's appointment. They're tired of waiting for the surprise of what your hospital bill is going to offer. That's being addressed by one of the president's executive orders. They're tired of waiting for access to their medical records. You own your medical records. They're yours. Why you can't have access to them is a stunning reality in modern day America. They're also tired of waiting for Washington to take action. And this president early on emphatically stated that wasn't going to happen anymore. And today we made that vision into a reality. And there's a fine line between vision and hallucination. What you did today was show it's a vision because you share it with us and we're moving ahead on it. And that's what today's commitments essentially are reflecting. And they are pledges. They're not laws. They're nimble and they're fast and they're quick because the president understands that you, each of you in your own way, understand these needs. And Secretary Kennedy spoke beautifully about the reality of what happens when you actually have electronic records, because what he said is happening in Indonesia, we'll have here. Within a year, on your device, And 91% of Medicaid patients have smartphones. On this device, you'll get insights based on your records if you want. You don't have to take this, but if you desire, Amy Gleason is one of the smartest people I've ever worked with, has built a mechanism to be able to get you that information in a way with all these partners helping so that you can get nudged to pay attention to what you're eating and avoid processed foods that Secretary Kennedy smartly and wisely highlighted as so dangerous to our well-being. All this, by the way, is that will be at the fingertips. In addition, advice about which doctor to see, when to go see them, nudges, reminding you why I didn't do certain things. If you're a doctor like me, it's a very different story. It's to help you navigate the system better. It's giving you advice, decision support, which is becoming increasingly important as medicine gets more difficult. But I'll tell you the best thing of all, how many of you have been with your doctor telling them something heartfelt, very emotional, and they're looking to the side, typing into their computer, right? It's common. Put your hands up. I just want to see it. Yeah, most everybody. And that's unfortunate because the whole sacrament, the whole covenant of being with the doctor is having them look you in the eyes and realize you're there for each other. That process is going to go away. We will, within the workflow of doctors, be able, with your help, allow physicians to take care of patients, gather the information while they're doing it, and will destroy the upcoding that has hurt Medicare Advantage and other programs in a similar fashion. The IT infrastructure that's going to change promises to improve a lot of things. We're going to cut fraud, waste, and abuse. Mr. President, we announced with the DOJ 2 weeks ago a $15 billion bust. $15 billion. It's a multinational criminal syndicate based primarily, we believe, in the Soviet Union, in Russia. And what they did was hack using beneficiary numbers into the system. We'll be able to stop that because of a system that Amy has put together and the wonderful work of Amy Brandt, who has a fraud war room using this kind of technology because we'll know who you are and who your doctor is. We can block this. We're going to have remarkable advances in how consumers can use their own records. We'll have beneficiaries be able to get MAHA advice and prevention tips and even be able to nudge them and reward them perhaps for that. And all this comes back to one fundamental issue, Mr. President, which is leadership. I think 60 people, the biggest, the best, the willing, came forward because of your leadership, because you weren't going to take no for an answer, and they know it. We are building a robust and safe, I emphasize that, safe system. It's going to protect the data better than we could have imagined. We're going to be able to accomplish goals that all of us wished from day one that would be in place. These pledges are now confirmed. They're signed in public. And you have therefore empowered Americans to own their property, which is their medical records. Let me introduce Amy Gleason. She is acting director of DOJ, U.S. Digital Service as well, and was actually the brilliant woman who pulled together the pieces of this puzzle with so many members of the audience. Amy Gleason.
Good afternoon. First, I would like to thank President Trump for his leadership in this area, and Secretary Kennedy and Administrator Oz for driving this work with clarity and urgency. I would also like to thank my colleagues who have been instrumental to this, and we've worked a lot of late nights and hard times on this, and it would not have been possible without them. I want to start today with my daughter Morgan, who's here in the audience. If you'd please stand up. I am so inspired and energized by your strength every day. And we also have two other patients here, Randy and Tom, who have been very inspiring. Thank you for being here today. You're why this all matters. Let me start talking about my daughter's history. So 15 years ago, she was diagnosed with a rare disease. She was 11 years old, and she started showing mysterious symptoms. Over the last year and a half after that, she saw the country's best doctors, but she still continued to get worse. At some point, she couldn't stand up off the floor or walk up the stairs, and we still had no answers. I carried a binder of paper records to every doctor's appointment so that I could keep them aligned. And I truly believe that if one of those doctors had been able to see her whole history, they would have diagnosed her faster. And if we had just had today's AI, then they could have connected the dots that the humans missed. Today, Morgan takes 21 pills a day, gets 2 infusions a month, and has over 40 patient portals. Her disease is very rare, but her experience is very common. And that is what we're here to fix today. Too many patients are forced to remember all the doctors that they've been to and log into portal after portal, repeating their story at every visit, and they don't have the digital tools to help them stay well. Meanwhile, every other part of our life is digital. I can order groceries and have them delivered in minutes. I get personalized recommendations on my other apps. But in healthcare, we still see it on paper and manual situations. But today, thanks to President Trump, we're changing that. Over 15 years, we've tried to regulate our way to a better outcome. And we have gotten a path forward, but they have not delivered the modern healthcare experience that Americans expect and deserve. I'm so proud today that these 60 companies have voluntarily stepped forward to make a pledge, to take action, and to join us, to say, we're ready, let's fix this, we're in. We're trying something different. It's not regulation or rulemaking. This is a voluntary alignment around a shared vision, a commitment to work across boundaries, across competitors, and across silos. We're bringing together data sharing networks, electronic medical records, doctors, health systems, payers, and app developers. And we're asking one simple question: what can we do right now to make this work for patients? The companies pledging today are agreeing to collaborate, even with their direct competitors, because they know we can't keep kicking the can down the road. We have to stop talking about data interoperability and make the data flow. Here's something important. Not all patients will want these tools. Some will rely on their caregivers, and others will rely on their doctors, so they don't have to carry it themselves. But no matter how people engage, we must make sure it works for everyone. CMS is doing its part. We're clearing the path for innovation by building the long overdue National Provider Directory, a kind of digital map for healthcare that connects systems in real time and helps patients get more coordinated care. We're also modernizing Medicare.gov to feel more seamless and smart like other apps we use. But the government can't do this and shouldn't do it alone. These tools we need to make daily decisions must come from the private sector, and that's why this is so important. So let me tell you what this might look like after our collaborative effort. So Morgan, in 6 months from now, might show up to her doctor's appointment. Instead of filling out a clipboard with her 21 medications, 12 doctors, and her entire medical history, she can just pull out her phone and tap or scan a QR code and seamlessly transfer her digital insurance card, her verified medical record, and a digital summary that could help her provider get up to speed faster. We call this kill the clipboard, as President Trump said. After the visit, Morgan opens her AI assistant, a tool that she has authorized to access her records, and asks, what did the doctor say today? What did these results mean? What should I watch for now? And the assistant responds using her actual health history, explains her care plan in plain language, helps her track her symptoms, and even schedules follow-up visits if she needs them. And lastly, she has a new favorite app that helps her manage her chronic conditions, because for years, Morgan has said what other patients say: I only see a doctor a few days a year, but I live with this disease every day. Today, we're starting with apps that can support patients 24 hours a day from anywhere in the world. They don't replace doctors, they just fill in the gap between visits so that care is continuous and not episodic. So what makes this effort different? Today, we have all these apps that want to provide these services, but they can't get the data because it is so hard for patients to access their records. But today, we have 18 network companies who are here pledging to fix the infrastructure that makes this possible. They're doing this through modern data sharing networks that removes the burden on patients and providers and makes it available in real time using modern identity, just like when you check in at the airport. These honor patient privacy and transparency, and most importantly, it's a movement to work together to remove the friction that's holding us back. Because access to information shouldn't be a luxury, it should be a standard. So for all the Morgans out there, come join this movement with us at cms.gov. Let's kill the clipboard and axe the facts. Let's help make health tech great again. Or in this case, maybe it's for the first time. Thank you, President Trump.
Thank you very much. That was great. And hello. You look very, very healthy to me. You look really great. So just, I want to thank all of the companies that are here. These are big names, great people. And now you're doing something that's so important for our country, really for the world. It's beyond our country, I suspect. It's really for the world. So just keep it up. And you've hit new highs almost virtually every day for the last few months. And that makes your job probably a little bit easier. You're under very little stress. But someday you might have a little bit, but you're not going to have much. I think we're really going to great heights. But I just want to thank everybody, political people and the teachers and the companies and all of our cabinet. I even see Newt. Do I see Newt? I see Newt. Look at him. He's such a handsome man. He's a healthy man. We don't have to do any tests on him. But good to see you, Newt. But I just want to thank everybody. This is a very big undertaking, and it's a very serious undertaking. It's going to make a lot of people lead a much better life. Thank you all very much for coming. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I call you by MFN?
Yeah.
Can we start?